At 6:14 p.m. on July 15, 2025, Michael Bernard Bell walked his final steps down a sterile hallway. The state of Florida ended his life by lethal injection after 31 years on death row. When the moment came and Bell was asked for his final statement, his words cut through the silence of that execution chamber like a knife. What he said, or didn't say, would define his legacy and provide the final chapter to one of Florida's most chilling crime sprees. But to understand the weight of those final words, we need to go back to where it all began, to the streets of Jacksonville in 1989, where a predator first learned to kill. Bell's killing spree began with the most horrific act imaginable, the murder of a young mother and her toddler. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong or a crime of passion. This was calculated, cold-blooded murder by a predator who saw no distinction between adult and child, between guilty and innocent. The mother, likely targeted as an easy victim, offered no significant resistance. Yet her death was executed with cold precision. The toddler, barely past infancy, a symbol of pure innocence, represented a threshold Bell crossed without hesitation. Forensic evidence revealed the child was killed at close range, eliminating any possibility of being collateral damage. This was deliberate annihilation. This first act was a chilling preview of the darkness that resided within Michael Bell. It wasn't about theft or an argument. It was about the sheer exercise of power, the taking of life for its own sake. The brutality of killing a child, someone completely helpless and undefended, suggested a profound lack of empathy, a void where conscience should have been. The investigators, years later, would look back at this case and see the nascent stages of a serial killer, a monster who walked among them, honing his methods in the shadows of Jacksonville. The crime left the community stunned, though at the time, no one connected it to the quiet, unassuming man Bell appeared to be. The raw, senseless violence of it sent shivers down the spines of even seasoned officers, a stark reminder that true evil lurked in unexpected places. The innocence of the victims made the crime particularly heinous, leaving a lasting scar on those who remembered it. What kind of monster kills a baby? The answer walked Jacksonville's streets for 4 more years. 4 months before his most notorious crimes, Bell shattered any remaining boundaries by murdering his mother's boyfriend. This wasn't a stranger in a dark alley. This was someone Bell knew, someone who had shared meals with him, someone within the fragile sanctuary of family. The killing was intensely personal and brutally violent. Reports indicated the attack was frenzied, suggesting either a rage that surprised even Bell or a terrifying enjoyment of inflicting violence on someone familiar. His mother became an indirect victim, her life irrevocably scarred by her son's monstrous act. This murder marked a significant escalation. It showed that Bell's violence wasn't limited to strangers. It could breach the most intimate circles. The fact that he targeted someone connected to his own mother, someone who might have even shown him kindness, revealed a complete breakdown of any social or familial bonds. This wasn't a crime of opportunity, but a deliberate act against someone he knew, suggesting a deep-seated pathology. The frenzied nature of the attack, as reported, hinted at either an uncontrollable fury or, even more disturbingly, a twisted pleasure derived from the act itself. His mother, who had likely tried to raise him, was left to grapple with the horrifying reality of her son's depravity, a betrayal that would haunt her for the rest of her days. This act demonstrated that no one was safe from Michael Bell, not even those closest to him. It was a chilling sign that his capacity for violence knew no limits, no loyalty, and certainly no love. This domestic murder, initially perhaps seen as an isolated incident, was in fact a terrifying stepping stone, preparing him for the wider terror he would soon unleash on the city. It underscored his growing detachment from humanity, a man steadily transforming into a pure instrument of destruction. The murder served as a terrifying preview. Bell's capacity for violence recognized no loyalty, no kinship, no boundaries. The murders of Jimmy West and Tameka Smith showcased Bell at his most coldly efficient. On a December night that should have been filled with holiday joy, Bell turned a bar parking lot into a killing field. This wasn't robbery or opportunity crime. This was planned execution. Bell had acquired an AK-47, a weapon designed for warfare, not street crime, signaling a terrifying escalation and clear intent to inflict maximum damage. Witnesses described him not as a panicked criminal, but as someone lying in wait, observing his prey with chilling detachment. He chose the location carefully, a parking lot offering limited escape routes and maximum visibility for his attack. The act itself was swift and merciless. No warnings, no demands, no interaction. He simply opened fire, unleashing a torrent of high-velocity rounds that left no chance for survival. The sound of automatic gunfire echoing through the festive December night wasn't just violence, it was terrorism, designed to shatter the community's sense of safety. The West/Smith murders initially appeared as an isolated incident, but veteran detectives sensed something deeper. The use of an assault rifle, the execution-style killings, the apparent lack of robbery motive, and the killer's confident disappearance pointed toward experience. Ballistic evidence became the crucial thread. While the rifle wasn't immediately recovered, unique markings on shell casings provided a signature. As detectives delved deeper, whispers about Bell's violent tendencies and the unresolved murder of his mother's boyfriend surfaced. The breakthrough came when a sharp-eyed detective reviewing cold case files noticed potential connections to the 1989 mother and child murders. The method, the utter lack of remorse, the targeting of the utterly vulnerable, resonated chillingly with the emerging pattern. Forensic evidence, re-examined with newer technologies, provided the connective tissue. The arrest in 1995 wasn't just for 2 murders. It was the unmasking of a serial killer Jacksonville hadn't fully realized it harbored. The trial was less about establishing guilt, the evidence was overwhelming, and more about forcing the community to confront the abyss Bell represented. Prosecutors methodically presented the forensic evidence. Ballistics matching the AK-47 to the West/Smith scene, witness testimony placing Bell near crime scenes, and the damning connections to earlier murders. The most harrowing moments came when details of the 1989 murders were revealed. Describing the murder of a toddler by a man who saw no distinction between that life and any other created palpable revulsion in the courtroom. Throughout the trial, Bell remained an enigma, showing no reaction to graphic testimony, heart-wrenching victim impact statements, or damning evidence. The jury's guilty verdict was swift. The death sentence recommendation was unanimous. The judge's imposition felt less like punishment and more like society's inevitable response to such profound evil. For 31 years, Michael Bernard Bell sat on Florida's death row, filing appeal after appeal, seeking delay after delay. The victims' families waited 3 decades for justice, watching the legal system slowly grind through its processes while their loved ones remained buried and their lives remained shattered. Each appeal triggered mandatory reviews, hearings, and agonizing waits. While Bell received medical care, legal resources, and the basic sustenance of life denied to his victims, the families endured a different sentence. They marked birthdays and holidays shadowed by absence, watching public attention fade only to be painfully reignited with each new legal maneuver. Some family members passed away before seeing final justice. Others lived with simmering anger at a system that seemed to prioritize the killer's rights over their desperate need for closure. On June 15, 2025, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed Michael Bernard Bell's death warrant. After decades of legal maneuvering, the appeals had been exhausted. The courts had spoken. The time for delays was over. Even as the execution date approached, Bell's attorneys made desperate last-minute attempts to save his life. They appealed to various courts, arguing legal technicalities, claiming procedural violations, seeking any avenue to delay the inevitable. But the courts had heard these arguments before. The evidence was clear, the convictions were solid, and the sentences were just. 5 people deserved justice, and their families deserved closure. One by one, the appeals were denied. There were no more stays, no more delays, no more hope. In his final days, Bell was moved to a cell adjacent to the execution chamber. He was offered his last meal, a surprisingly mundane request: cheeseburger, French fries, vanilla milkshake, and apple pie. The normalcy stood in stark contrast to the monstrous nature of his crimes. He met with spiritual advisors, though the nature of those discussions remains private. Prison staff reported he remained largely impassive, perhaps resigned, perhaps simply detached as he had always been. On July 15, 2025, Bell spent his final hours knowing exactly when he would die. The execution team was briefed, the chemicals were prepared, the witnesses were notified. Among them, representatives of the families whose lives he had destroyed. At the appointed time, guards escorted him to the execution chamber. The room was small, sterile, and clinical. Witnesses watched through windows as justice was finally served after 31 years. When asked for his final statement, Michael Bernard Bell spoke briefly to the assembled witnesses. He did not confess to the murders of 5 innocent people. He did not apologize to the families who watched from the witness room, still carrying their decades of pain. His last words were, "I made my choices. Let it be done." With that, the execution proceeded. At 6:27 p.m. on July 15, 2025, Michael Bernard Bell was pronounced dead. The story of Michael Bernard Bell was about choices. His victims chose to live normal lives. A mother caring for her child, a young couple enjoying an evening out, a man trying to build a relationship. Bell chose violence, terror, and death. Those choices reached their conclusion on July 15, 2025. The victims' legacies live on in the memories of those who loved them, affirming that innocent lives matter and deserve justice. Bell's legacy is marked by his crimes and the ultimate punishment he faced. Justice may be slow, but it is not forgotten. After 31 years, 5 victims finally received justice, and Bell paid for his actions. The reign of terror ended, and now it is all over. What do you think about Bell's final statement? Was justice served after 3 decades of delays? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Click here to watch the next video.